Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I wish to continue the subject of connection. We have previously discussed with you something beautiful and profound called the Lemurian Teaching Wheel. As it starts to be slowly revealed, it will occur to you the profundity and the beauty of what the Pleiadians taught to the children and to the adults, and the way they taught it. Everything planned for human nature. The human nature of the day, of the time. And some of the things hide. The way the teaching was accomplished, the fun that they had, all to relax those who would be taught some of the most profound things that will carry into the Akash and change the earth. One of the things that's hiding, dear ones, that actually was not then specified is the way they taught the subjects. Anytime you have a list or any kind of linear learning, there is a tendency to prioritize the things because they are often presented to you in a linear fashion. For instance, if I gave you a list, as I often do, and it started with number 1, which it often does, that many times would carry a bias. And the bias is that of all of those coming in the list, number 1 would be the most important. Even if I told you it wasn't, if I told you the list had 10 things and that 10 was special, suddenly you would reverse the order and say 1 was lesser than. And so however it is presented in a physical or linear way, there is a tendency for humans to bias things and linearize them and hierarchialize them. The hierarchy is the interesting thing you do. In your society, the family has a structure. Who is in charge? Quite soon after birth, the child understands who's the boss. There always seems to be a boss. As the child grows up and goes to school, there is the teacher, the boss. And then within the class, there are those who seem to be more important than others. And it's second nature for you to prioritize and create a hierarchy of who is and who is not and where they belong. That is a human nature attribute, and it actually is part of survival. For you to know these things, then create that which you can then plan with and abide by and live with. Knowing that which is more important than something else helps you in everyday life. Where am I going? Because the teachers that created the teaching wheel gave to the students, which literally became all of humanity eventually, gave them a wheel with 5 spokes. And the rim had a purpose and a name, and the center had a purpose and the name, but the 5 spokes, those were the working areas. What you should know, everyday life, the most practical things were contained in the 5 spokes. We've told you before, unlike the other wheels that exist today all over the planet, this one had an uneven number of spokes. And the reason, because the wheel itself had a name, a purpose, a feeling, an energy called seeking balance. And so 5 is not an even number, so it's always seeking at least 1 more or 1 less. A balance within itself, because to you, it's an uneven number. Now, which spoke gets the most importance. If the teacher starts with a certain spoke that is not numbered, human nature would say that's the most important. Or perhaps the least important because others are coming, which might be more important, but literally the student is always aware of the hierarchy. So what the teachers did, and we're saying this yet again, was carefully never to start on the same spoke. And in order to show the students this parameter and the importance of it, they made a game of randomness and asked the children to play the game, and the result of the randomness was the spoke that they started on every day. All of this to tell the students that no matter how sacred the learning was, that no spoke would ever be more important than any other. And so that's the paradigm, dear ones, of spiritual learning and spiritual existence. And if you pull that to today, human nature still resounds. And you want to know which angel is more important than another. And in the spiritual realm of things, you want to know, how do I connect the best? And in some systems, the connection starts with a human. The human then can connect to another group of spiritual beings, and those beings can then connect to the central source. This is human nature. The first primary human nature is that it is impossible for a human being to connect to the source by themselves. And that comes from the feeling of being too small, or self-worth, or be unworthy to make that connection. And so there's all manner of tools that you are given then by others to climb the stairs, or pass the tests, or go here or there, or face the directions, or whatever, in order to go to a step where you can at least connect and be and do. Even the ones who believe in the oneness of all things, in the most primary and original spiritual system on the planet, that would be the Hindu, still believe that they must go to a place for nirvana, that it cannot be accomplished on their own. This is the human nature that exists everywhere today, and I want you to break the paradigm. The Pleiadians taught this, that when it comes to those things that deal with the Creator and the most spiritual things you could ever learn and be, the most beautiful things that you are, there is no hierarchy. And you would say, well, wait a minute. Are you saying there simply isn't a list of importance? And I would say that's correct. And I say, we caught you, Kryon. God has to be the one. That's the most important, right, Kryon? And I will say to you, what if I told you God was inside you? How is that sitting with the hierarchy? And you have to think of that, don't you? Because then it violates the rules of linearity and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It becomes a multi-dimensional issue, doesn't it? If God is inside of you, are you going to worship yourself? If God is inside of you, how is the best way to connect to everything all at once? And the answer is for you to go inside and get it. There is no hierarchy in this universe when it comes to the creation of souls. There's no group of souls that is higher placed than any other. There's no light and dark quotient on the other side of the veil. There is simply love. And inside you is a spark of all of it. No hierarchy, just love. Inside you is the connection. That's the connection that my partner even spoke of earlier when we talked of spontaneous remission. A moment of time when the God inside becomes in your biology so strong that nothing can touch it. It's the secret of youthing. It's the secret of compassionate life and peace and a good night's sleep. All of these things are inside you. That is the connection, the real connection. So the next time somebody tells you what you must do to get to a certain place, don't make them wrong. Don't tell them you have something better. Just show it to them. That you can carry that which is the compassion of the Creator as you stand up and leave the chair, as you walk around, as you speak to the next person. That's the message I wanted you to hear. And I'll give it again and again and again. And so it is.